Thursday, June 11th. You are watching London's finest. Will Fowler, Jonathan Banks, and Andrew Myers. Usually here to talk about all of the breaking news stories and transfer rumors and all that good stuff, but not today. This is the first time, I think, ever in this show that all three of us are wearing our club kits, and it is for a good reason, gentlemen. We've been doing our previews. We did Bundesliga. We did La Liga earlier this week. But today is the big dog. Today is the day that we preview the league that our show really was kind of founded on, to be honest. I mean, 3 Premier League fans, 3 Premier League clubs. We're going to preview the Premier League restart. Are you gentlemen as excited as I am for this one?
Absolutely. This is the league that we've all come to know and love. What made us these pure and avid football fans that we are today. And like you said, we're wearing our kits. Gotta rep the Chelsea boys right here. Shout out Czech Fabregas, Arsenal legend as well. Got a little double London love here for Czech Fabregas. But yeah, I'm just hyped to watch my boys play again. And I'm hyped to talk some a league that I actually really know with you two boys.
Yeah, I'm very excited, even if I didn't just say it in my voice. It's interesting because the Bundesliga is technically the most popular league in the world, but when it comes down to it, in America, it's the Premier League and La Liga, and it's the Premier League for a lot of people because if you don't like Messi or Ronaldo, because Ronaldo on Real Madrid growing up, you're basically a Premier League fan. So this is huge. When this comes back, it'll be awesome too because it's not like the Bundesliga. You're literally getting a game every day. And, of course, had the Arsenal away kit for a team that hasn't lost since December, except don't talk about that Brentford friendly the other day. But the team is ready to go, and I'm excited.
Should we not mention Olympiacos either?
Because that wasn't a Premier League competition, it doesn't count.
Okay, fair. I was telling you guys, last night it hit me. Like last night, I know I've been saying it on the show. We've been saying it on the show. Oh, Premier League's coming back. Premier League's coming back. But those were just words. Last night, it hit me like a goddamn truck, boys. Premier League is coming back in 1 week. Very, very exciting stuff. Let's dive right into it. If you've been with us before, you know what our template looks like. We've got our Premier League background with our 5 categories that we typically touch on: club to watch, player to watch, top scorer, Champions League, and winner. Now, Andrew has joked that the final category of these 5 will probably not be that interesting for every single person watching. You might already know where we're leaning, but the other 4 categories are going to be very, very interesting because we do have a little bit of disagreement here. And I think this is a league where we'll actually be able to dive in and argue as opposed to just make our cases because it's a league that we all know so well. We'll start with club to watch. Andrew, as per the usual, you are first on our list. So go ahead and give us your club to watch.
Thank you, sir. I get the lovely honor of starting off these previews. I went with a squad that is maybe one of the hottest squads on the planet before the pandemic hit. I went with Manchester United. Their last 11 matches before the break, they were unbeaten, 9 wins and 2 draws. That's in all competitions too. I think it was a couple Europa League matches, and I think they had a League Cup match in there as well. But nonetheless, they're winning games. They're not dropping points, and they've outscored opponents 29-2 in those 11 matches. They had 9 clean sheets. David De Gea was standing on his head. That defense really built up their courage, led by Harry Maguire, and they really turned the corner here. And it's kind of telling how bad the first half of their season was, where you go on a 11-match unbeaten streak. I think it was 8 matches in the Premier League in that 11-game span, and they're still in 5th place, so they're not even in a Champions League spot. Well, technically not a Champions League spot. We'll get that later. But, yeah, it's just an exciting club to watch. Bruno Fernandes coming in January obviously helped them turn a corner. There's been rumors pretty much since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has taken over permanently last year that he's going to get sacked because they just haven't really found a nice run of form, and now they're finally doing that. And now everybody's calling him to stay there and kind of be the next big, I'm not going to say he's going to be the next Alex Ferguson, but maybe the next manager that can lead Man United back to the promised land that Alex Ferguson had them for so long. So this is an exciting team to watch, and I would be lying to myself if I said I wasn't nervous as a Chelsea fan. As we're 5 points up on United for 4th place, but United's hot as hell, and they're a very, very exciting team to watch right now. Whereas Chelsea, the young squad, is very inconsistent. We talked about it all year long. Obviously, I'm backing my boys to get in the Champions League as well. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about this Man U squad. Thankfully, we don't have to play them again because the 2 times we played them this year, they thrashed us.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this United squad is that if you look at like one of those tables where it puts like the table, like the full 1 through 20 table, and then United's results home and away against each of those teams, they have done so well against teams above them. They did the double against Chelsea. They did the double against Manchester United. They beat Leicester in their only match head to head so far. They took points from Liverpool, one of only two teams to do that. But then they've lost to Bournemouth. They've lost to teams like Brighton. I mean, it gets so confusing, but it makes for good viewing if you're a neutral fan. So, Banks, club to watch. Who are you looking for?
I just want to point out one thing that might make Andrew a little more nervous. He made a comment that Chelsea was 5 points ahead of Manchester United. I checked, and it's 3 points actually.
3 points.
So
Oh, yikes.
one little measly game.
That's
So
right. 5 points off of losing a Champions League spot.
gotcha. That's fair. That's fair. For my club to watch, for me, it was simple. And again, if I'm not going to be watching my favorite sport for the last 3 months, you better be crazy to believe that if the Premier League doesn't come back, my favorite club isn't going to be the club to watch. And that's how I'm putting it. And for Arsenal, I actually had a legitimate reason to choose them because we all know Arsenal is in their worst run of form and arguably ever or in this century. But when you think about it, the Unai Emery end was a nightmare. But since Arteta came in, Arsenal hasn't lost a game in the Premier League since December 29th. Yes, it's been a lot of draws and a lot of 1-0 wins and a few good wins, especially against Newcastle, #NUFC. But when I think about Arsenal, I think about a club that's in a really weird position because they haven't lost since December 29th, but they've also really haven't made much ground up at all in any sort of race to make this season somewhat credible. So for them, they have to show that they aren't heavily reliant on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who might be shown the door. And besides that, they're also adapting to a new system that they basically took 2 months off of perfecting and learning before going back onto the training ground and playing against one of the best teams in the world in Manchester City when they come back. I think for Arsenal, if they can somehow only lose once or twice before the rest of the season and maybe pick up some ground on Tottenham, Sheffield, and Wolves, for example, and finish in 6th place, then you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, that's a good season. And for how much influx Arsenal has been in, that is something that looks attainable right now. So if they can get started with some winning ways, they don't have a terribly tough schedule after Manchester City. They have Brighton and Southampton before Sheffield, I believe, in the FA Cup. So they have some wiggle room there. I'm looking to them to make a little bit of a jump here and finish in 6th place.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you can really say about everybody down to, even if you want to include Crystal Palace down 11th. I mean, Wolves, Sheffield, Tottenham, Arsenal, Burnley, Palace, and maybe Everton. I mean, we're talking so much about the top 4 race, but this Europa League race, I know it's not fun to talk about as a Spurs fan or as an Arsenal fan, or race for Europa League, but it's going to be just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the top 4 race because there are so many more teams in there, and there are a lot of teams in there that really shouldn't be in there. Arsenal, if you put so much stock into form, 11 points out of the last 15 possible to take. So maybe getting hot at the right time,
Also,
definitely an improvement under Mikel Arteta.
I don't know how you feel about this, but from my perspective, I think right now, at least how both things are going, the easier avenue is to get back into the Champions League by winning the Europa League than getting in the top 4 right now, which could be interesting. But I think it's because in the Europa League, for example, Arsenal drew Olympiacos, a matchup that they should win 99 times out of 100. And unless, for example, Arsenal's road to the final last year was tough when they had Napoli and Atletico Madrid in knockout rounds. Usually you're playing teams like Olympiacos into the final 8, but that wasn't the case for Arsenal. They obviously squandered it, but that's easier than beating out because Liverpool, Manchester City automatically cover up 2 spots. Then Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, and now you have Wolves and Sheffield contending for spots. So I think that might arguably be an easier way. If not, that's 2 viable options. So that's why they got to also find a way to get back into Europe next year.
Yeah, and I definitely, I think where we stand right now, I'd probably agree with you there. Like you said, Liverpool and City are virtual locks. City question mark because they're ineligible. But even if you want to throw Leicester into that pool, that's a team that hasn't been mentioned yet. Chelsea looks like a lock to be a Champions League team for the next 2 or 3 years based on the signings they've made. And not to mention, if you qualify through Europa League, you may even have a better outlook on European football that next season because a Europa League champion or a win in Europa League puts you into pot one. It puts you into that group of 8 that gets the lesser teams, as opposed to finishing 4th in England, where you may be a pot 3 team and you'd have to get Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, assuming that Real Madrid stays in pot 2. Winning Europa League may even give you a better outlook in the Champions League the next season based on who you could get drawn against. So definitely a good point. Europa League race, one to watch for teams like Spurs and Arsenal, because they will not be as bad next year as they were this year. And if they do get in Europa League, they legitimately could be a team that compete for a Europa League title next year.
Yeah.
All right. No, sorry, you go, Banks.
I was going to say, yeah, you're right. But it could arguably be a blessing in disguise for one of these clubs to not get into Europe, so they're fully focused on the Premier League next season.
True. I think fans would burn the city down, but as far as the club goes, the outlook could be a little bit better. My club to watch is not in the top 6 or the Europe's big 6, so to speak. There are a lot of teams in the top 7, top 8 that really are not supposed to be there. And by that, I mean teams that we're not used to seeing in the top 8. Leicester, obviously, is maybe the most obvious. Certainly was supposed to be good, but not third place good. Wolves, another one, a team that qualified for Europa League last year. But the one that surprises me the most, I think, is Sheffield United. And that's because this is their first season back in the top flight. Of the 3 teams that were promoted, Sheffield, Norwich, and Aston Villa, Sheffield United was the one that was was most expected to drop back down to the championship. And where are they now? They're in 7th and 2 points off a spot for Europa League. It's not like this is just some promoted team. They didn't pull a Villa. They didn't pull a Fulham where they go out and spend £100 million on players to bring in and completely revamp the squad. The squad they play is fairly similar to the one they played in the championship last year. It's exciting. It's young. Obviously, they signed Sander Berg in January to come and play holding midfield. And the tactics are not boring either. If you watch Sheffield United, the first thing you notice is the center backs. They place their center backs as wingers in attack. I mean, that's something that nobody else in England is doing. So an exciting team to watch there. If not for a little bit of a change of pace in England's top 6, you get a team that you're not used to seeing. The watching them play for a full 90 minutes is interesting in and of itself, whether they were in 7th or in 17th. And the team that most pundits were expecting to finish 20th back before the season started are fighting for a spot in Europe. So 3 really interesting teams to look out for. Banks, you want to say something?
It just is. It's funny. Like you totally have an accurate point, but it's almost funny because you chose your club to watch to be arguably the most boring club in the Premier League to watch. Which is
I just said why they weren't the most boring club in England to watch.
They've scored 30 goals and they're in 7th place. They're stealing it, and they defend very well. But what do you get out of those games? You get an organized team, and you're watching them basically put their backs against the wall for 90 minutes, no matter who they play. They don't take the game to anyone, but they defend really well. I mean, there's a reason they've given up 25 goals, and Chelsea's given up 39, for example. I think Arsenal's given up 36. But it's just funny that you're not wrong by any stretch of anything you said, but your club to watch is in 7th place and within 2 points of a European spot, and they've scored 30 goals and given up 25 in 28 matches.
Let me bring Andrew into this conversation then, because when we did our La Liga preview, hi Andrew, when we did our La Liga preview on Monday, his team to watch was Atletico Madrid, which is basically in the exact same situation as Sheffield United.
Different. Atletico Madrid is one of the best.
They're in the exact same position as Sheffield United right now. The exact same position. Can't score goals, defend really well.
That's an exception. That team has been to Champions League finals before. That's one of the most popular teams in the world. Sheffield United has been good this year. They've been really darn good. But over half the world probably still never heard of them.
Exactly, and that's why I need to watch them.
Yeah, they're not – Sheffield's obviously not the flashiest team, but I mean, they're in 7th place for a reason. I don't think – you could be saying that they I guess they are stealing it from teams, but they play very good defensive football, and you don't always need to – what's the mantra here in America? Defense wins championships. So they're obviously not winning a championship this year or anything like that, but they're in a higher position than anybody expecting them to be in their first season in the Premier League. And yeah, like I said, they're not the sexiest team to watch, but they are kind of a fun team to watch when it's kind of, there's just that underdog mentality where a club it's where they're not supposed to be, and you can just see you want to see how far they can go. They can maybe get up to 6th or 5th or 6th if they continue to play well defensively.
When I hear club to watch, I think a club that is doing something that they were not expected to do when the season started. And Sheffield United, Real Sociedad, Freiburg fit that bill exactly. I could have gone Liverpool because they're 25 points clear at the top. I chose not to. I chose to go with something interesting.
Just imagine if Sheffield finishes in 5th and we see him in the Champions League next
That'd be
year.
nuts. That'd be nuts. I would be the first person on the Sheffield United team store buying a jersey from them. All right. So clubs to watch: Manchester United, Arsenal, Sheffield United. But truthfully, you could have picked any team inside the top 11, and it would have been a viable answer. Now we'll go to player to watch. We've got 3 different answers here too. Andrew, who's your player to watch?
Yeah, so for player to watch, I try to think of a big storyline to follow on a player. Maybe his transfer rumors are flying around him, or maybe a player's coming in trying to replace him or something. I can't really think of anything huge, or at least a big name player. So I just went with a guy that I just like watching play, and that's James Madison. He's a central cog. He's the engine of one of the most exciting teams in England, in Leicester City. Another surprising team like Sheffield, or like Will said, not a lot of people expect them to finish in 3rd. Even after they won the Prem, 4 or 5 years ago, they've dipped down to what people expect them to be, a mid-table team in the Premier League the past 3-4 seasons. But they really ramped it up this year, and James Madison's a big part of that. I mean, coming over from Norwich a couple seasons ago, I think Brendan Rodgers has really molded him into a very solid player, not just on the club level, but he's going to be a huge part of Gareth Southgate's English national team for the next couple of years. So he's an exciting player to watch, and I like watching him dish passes left and right. And he only has 3 assists this year, which actually kind of surprised me. But everything he does in the midfield is very solid. He does make some mistakes still because he's only 23 years old. But I think a lot of people are linking him to a move to Man U or just a big club in general, kind of push him to the next step. But I don't accept just yet because I think Leicester City, I don't think they're going to be a fluke like they were when they won the Premier League and then dropped down. I think like they're not the was the next season. I think they're going to be staying in the Champions League race. The next couple, Jamie Vardy starts to dip out a little bit. They got to get another goal scorer. But James Madison, if he stays there for the next 3-4 seasons, he can really turn Leicester City into a big 6 type.
Yeah, James Madison is awesome to watch. But my player to watch is someone whose story is very intriguing as of the last few weeks. You have 15 goals this season in 30 matches, 13 in the Premier League. You're 22 years old. You wear your team's number 9 shirt, and your team is trying to replace you. I feel like that's practically unheard of. But if you're Tammy Abraham, that is the situation you're in right now. And it's weird because Abraham has continuously had to prove himself in recent years while out on loan. I believe he was at Aston Villa last year and then back at Chelsea this year. He's a player that just puts the ball in the back of the net for fun. You're 22. And then Hakim Ziyech is coming in, more importantly, to take your position. Timo Werner. Chelsea's been rumored heavily with Kai Havertz, who we've seen play in that position. Frank Lampard has said he wants to give a chance to play 2 up top. But for Tammy Abraham, this is sink or swim territory because Timo Werner, when that's over the line, he's come in to start, whether it's 1 or 2 strikers, whatever the case may be. And for Tammy Abraham, if you don't even continue the goal output that you had before the restart, arguably, if you don't up your goals that you had coming in, then there's no place for you in this Chelsea side. And for him, this is a huge fight for your future type of moment here because no matter how long he plays for Chelsea, and I know his contract runs out, so I feel like that's more likely for him. If he really wants to be at Chelsea, he's going to have to score, and he's going to have to fight for his place every single time he steps on the pitch, which is something that's kind of interesting because for most other Premier League sides right now in current form, he'd step into the starting 11. But with Chelsea seeming to want so many reinforcements, that's not just him. Christian Pulisic seems to be in a little bit of trouble too with everything that they're bringing in. But Chelsea's youngsters and Chelsea's mainstays that they brought in recent years have to show that they're going to score and they're going to play well, or there's no future for them at Chelsea, which is a problem for Tammy Abraham. So he's got to step up and score.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a solid way to go with this. But truthfully, I think you could say any of Chelsea's young players that we saw break out this season, whether it be Tammy Abraham or Pulisic or even Mason Mount, Chelsea being linked with some attacking midfielders around Europe. I think it's so funny how back when the season started, when Chelsea had this transfer ban and they were forced to put young players into the squad and into the starting 11, we give them so much praise for finally reverting to their academy and using these wonder kids and putting them in the starting 11. And they were reaping the benefits for the first 3 or 4 months because Tammy Abraham was at one point the top scorer in England. Mason Mount looked like a really solid number 10 for the future. Christian Pulisic, once he came back from injury, was a really solid on the right. And now, not even 6 months later, we've either seen Chelsea go out and buy replacements, quote unquote, or at least somebody in the same position, or we're seeing them heavily linked to players to big money moves
Yeah.
for those same positions. So it's almost like were their ears plugged for the first 4 months because they had all this talent and they're already less than 6 months later going and trying to put somebody else ahead of them. Tammy Abraham, definitely an interesting situation. I think maybe the most so out of those three, out of Pulisic, Mason Mount, and Abraham, just because of how good he's been this season. And I mean, when you look at Chelsea's team from the fall, the first name that comes to mind, at least Wonder Kids wise, is Tammy Abraham because of what he was able to do as Chelsea's number 9. I'm going to go with a player who truthfully is being linked as somebody who could go to Chelsea and be a so to speak, Mason Mount replacement. Currently at the bottom of the table, but that doesn't mean he's not one of the best midfielders in England just in general. I'm with Jack Grealish. This is somebody who is going to get England caps sooner rather than later. He's one of the best number 10s in England. He's the reason why Aston Villa are not 15 points at the bottom. And he's being linked with all of the biggest clubs in England. Obviously, he's being linked with United most heavily, but he is also being linked with Chelsea. He was linked with Spurs last season. Probably would have gone there if Aston Villa hadn't earned promotion from the Championship. This is a player who, whenever you watch Aston Villa, Jack Grealish is the first person to stand out, and it's for good reason. He is a very, very talented number 10, can score goals, can make the final ball, can rack up assists, but he is very technically sound as number 10. He's got a little bit of flair to him too. But if you're looking for an individual to watch for talent, for skill, but also for storyline, Jack Grealish is somebody who is very technically sound, very good at football, but is also going to be an interesting watch for the next 1.5 to 2 months because he is absolutely out the door, especially if Villa go down. So somebody who will be on the move this summer is getting back in action. Statistically, I think as far as match ratings go, he's like a top 10 midfielder in England, which is a shock considering how bad Aston Villa have been, which is a testament to how good Grealish has been this season. Top scorer. Now, this one is interesting because it involves one of our three strikers, I guess. It's not Tammy Abraham because he's gone cold. It's not Harry Kane because he's been hurt. It's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but there is still some disagreement here. So, Andrew, I'll let you start.
Yeah, well, I really was tempted to take Jamie Vardy, but when you just look at the whole picture of this Premier League restart and the table and games left, stuff like that, it's hard-pressed not to take Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang because his club has the most to play for. And you look at the rest of the guys around him. Jamie Vardy's right now leading with 19 goals. He's 33 years old. These guys are going to be playing 2 games a week for the next 6 weeks. I don't know if Jamie Vardy has the legs to be playing 180 minutes every week. So I don't know if he's going to get that much opportunity to go out there and score goals. I think he's in that maybe 6 to 5 range. I think he can get up to 25 goals maybe. But then you have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who he's going to be playing pretty much every match for Arsenal. He's played every minute. He's been able to when he's healthy for Arsenal this year. So and when he's on the pitch, all he does is score goals. So it's hard pressed to not see him scoring at least 25. Then you look at everybody underneath him: Mo Salah, Sergio Aguero, and Sadio Mane, 3 guys on Liverpool and City who they really don't have anything to play for. I mean, City, you can technically say, are still playing for a Champions League spot, but they're probably not going to be in Champions League next year because of their ban. And Liverpool needs one more win to clinch the title. So I think there's going to be a lot of squad rotation within Liverpool and City, so you may not see all those star players enough to jump Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Jamie Vardy. And then Danny Ings is interesting too, but he's another older guy who should be playing a lot because Southampton, they don't really have anybody else, and they are on the outskirts of the relegation battle. They shouldn't drop, but if they drop their first 3-4 matches, they could get into some dangerous territory. So he's another guy that I was really looking at. But when you look at the whole grand scheme of things, like I said, Aubameyang, it's hard not to pick him.
I agree. I mean, in this situation, how could I not choose the guy that I'm wearing the shirt of in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? And it came down similarly to all the other situations going on. At Arsenal, out of everyone in the top 5, besides obviously Danny Ings is playing for relegation and to save themselves, Arsenal has a lot more to play with, had a lot more to play for than Leicester and Manchester City. Andrew hit that right on his head. And when I just look at their schedules, it just looks like Arsenal has a lot of games, and arguably every Premier League game anyone can win. But they have a lot of games that are going to be against defensive-minded teams that pack it in. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has shown that every single game, he's the only one that really has the quality to unlock some of these teams this season. And I think it's just going to come down to him and Vardy. And Leicester's in a weird spot right now where, yes, they have, quote-unquote, second place to play for, But if Manchester City beats Arsenal before everyone else plays, like we're assuming to get equal to 29 games, that's going to be 7 points for Leicester and make up in second. And right now, unless they lose 3 times in a row, I don't think they're really a threat to lose out on a Champions League place, but obviously they want to keep it. But I just see Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang just using his quality and his age right now in his prime to be able to score more than 2 goals to Vardy. Because if Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scores once or twice every 2 games, that would not be surprising to me at all. And I'm not sure if anyone is going to be able to keep up with his strike rate due to playing time or anything like that we've seen in the Premier League top right now. So I'm going with Aubameyang.
Yeah, Aubameyang definitely in a really good spot to finish as Premier League Golden Boot. For the sake of being different, I'm going to attempt to make a case for not Jamie Vardy, but for instead Sergio Aguero. And the reason why is because if you look at it, take away the individuals themselves. Look at these 2 teams. City have the best goal scoring team in England, 68 goals to Liverpool 66. They're much better, much more fluid offensively. Arsenal, as good as Aubameyang is, it's no secret that the team has hit some bumpy patches along the way, at least goal scoring wise. A lot of 0-0, a lot of 1-1 in the first half of the season. So there's a little bit of concern for me there with Aubameyang if he hits one of those bumps. The other thing too, and the biggest counter against Sergio Aguero is, like you said, Andrew, City don't have much to play for. Aguero may not be playing every single game, but if we're looking at this situation, I will take the player in the better attacking forward group every single time, especially if it's a 28 goal difference between City and Arsenal. And the other thing too is there's going to be so much squad rotation because, like you guys both said, you're playing twice a week, so it's going to come down to not only the starting 11s but also who is the immediate backup. I think the depth that City have at their wide positions and even at number 10 is a lot better than Arsenal's. If Nico Pepe, Bukayo Saka, and who plays on the left? Who's the usual starter? Lacazette or Aubameyang? If Lacazette and Nico Pepe aren't playing in this game, who is going to step up and give Aubameyang those assists and help Aubameyang out?
I actually feel like that statement helped my argument and Andrew's argument because because you just listed Manchester City has a bevy of options to score. Manchester City, when they roll into a game, they have about 8 players that you think, all right, if they score today, I wouldn't be surprised. When you look at Arsenal's team, you're like, wow, if these 2 guys don't score, Aubameyang or Lacazette, I'm surprised who's going to score. And while you have a totally accurate point about who's going to provide Aubameyang and Aguero has all these people to provide him, I think it comes down to Aguero's not going to play every game. Aubameyang has to create so much on his own, even if he's not that type of player, because of Arsenal's lack of quality of options to feed him, because it's not prime Mesut Ozil anymore. It's basically Aubameyang is the only direct threat to score for Arsenal every game. Even if he plays with Lacazette, Lacazette's acting more as a hold-up player, and Aubameyang's the one running in behind and creating those threats. So I think that Arsenal just has less viable scoring options, which is what you said, but I think that supports the fact that Aubameyang is more likely to score more goals even more.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment, but the way I was breaking it down was that it seems like based on who these teams have and the way that they've been playing, Aguero is going to get more consistent chances based on who he has around him. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is a better goal scorer than Gabby Martinelli or Nico Pepe, but they're also much better at helping out the number 9. Sergio Aguero is somebody who, even if he doesn't need to generate for himself, he will still get 3 to 5 chances a game just based on who City have around him. As good as Aubameyang is, Banks, you've told me more than one time how good Aubameyang is at creating his own space, creating his own shot, creating his own chance. There's a little bit of concern for me, especially with them so tight. It's only a 1-goal difference. I'm more leaning towards the Sergio Aguero camp simply because although he won't get the huge bulk of chances that Aubameyang typically gets in Arsenal, he's going to overall get a lot more just based on how much more consistent their forward group is. That being said, I think I need to say before I move on, if Aubameyang wins the Golden Boot, I will absolutely not be surprised. I think right now you can probably call it a 50-50. Even if you want to give it 60-40 to Aubameyang, I think he might be a little bit more likely. But I personally am a little bit more comfortable going with the player who plays in the better attack forward group as a whole. Also, I can't bring myself to choose an Arsenal player as Golden Boot, a category that a Tottenham player has dominated for – not dominated, it's been 2 years. But regardless, I think Aubameyang, Aguero, and even we haven't mentioned Jamie Vardy yet, but Jamie Vardy is definitely has a good shout. He's at the top of the charts by 2 goals, and Leicester are still playing for something. I know they're not playing for much because we can almost lock them in as a Champions League spot. But even if they were down in 14th or 15th, I think you can assume that based on the way their team is, Jamie Vardy would be playing every single game, regardless of where they were in the table. So he's going to get the opportunities as well. And then if you want to make a case for somebody like Salah and Mane, I think they probably cancel each other out, but that wasn't the case last year because they both won a share of the Golden Boot. And even further down, I know I'm rambling now, but Danny Ings is a player who Southampton are going to be fighting off relegation if they don't start hot. That's a situation that Banks loves with Robin Quizon and Lucas Perez. So maybe Danny Ings is somebody who goes and bags 5 or 6 goals in the first 4 matches, and he throws himself into this race. Very, very interesting. A lot more interesting than the Golden Boot races of the other leagues because there is a lot of not a lot of wiggle room, should I say, between top and 6th or 7th. All right, my spiel over. We're going to get into the Champions League teams. Now, there's a lot of overlap here, but I want to not only say who we think qualifies for a Champions League spot, but also the order, because I think the order of these teams will spark a little bit of controversy. Andrew, who you got in the Champions League?
Yeah, so there's no shock here that they're going to win the league. Spoiler alert, we haven't got to our winners yet, but that's obviously what's going to happen. So they're a lock. And then the City's obviously interesting. They're on a 2-year ban right now. They're appealing it. They're supposed to find out next month before the Premier League season ends. But I think we've all been in agreement. We talked about it a lot. If they are going to get it taken away, they're not going to get it fully taken away. It's going to be reduced a year, so that means they're still going to miss next season. So that means that 3 through 5 make it as opposed to 1 through 4. I think Leicester, like Will said earlier, I think they're a lock as well. They're 10 points off if you go by that 6th place drop. And they would just need a colossal collapse for them to lose out, and I don't see that happening. So then it comes down to Chelsea, United, Wolves, Sheffield, and then you can throw in Tottenham and Arsenal in there as well. And I'm going with Leicester in 3rd to be the 2nd team to go. I'm taking Chelsea as my 4th place team, and then I'm going United in that last Champions League spot. And I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think Chelsea is the team that's teetering closer than United to miss out, simply because they've just been so inconsistent. And you compare like 2 schedules. Chelsea doesn't have a terribly hard schedule, but they still play City and Liverpool, albeit they may not be the strongest sides because they play Liverpool the second to last week of the season. Liverpool will already be done and dusted, winning the Champions League or winning the Premier League by then. And they play teams like West Ham and Sheffield United, who they've dropped points against this season. So they may not be, the flashiest teams, like we've said, and they may not be the best teams in the league. But Chelsea, a young Chelsea squad, has dropped points against some bad teams this season. And then you look at Man U, 5 of their remaining 10 matches, or 9 matches, 5 of their remaining 9 matches are against squads in the bottom 5 of the table, and they only play 2 teams inside the top half of the table. And one of them, Sheffield United, who, like we said, they're a nice team to watch, but they don't score a lot of goals. So if United can put 2 or 3 past them, it'd be hard pressed to see Sheffield United score 3 goals and try to get a point out of that. So to be completely honest with you, I think United has a better shot at making it than Chelsea, but I have to back my guys to get in there. I just think it's so crucial for Chelsea to get in the Champions League because bringing in Ziyech, bringing in Timo Werner, if it gets done, hopefully it does get done. It's supposed to get done by the end of the weekend. If you bring in those type of quality players like that and you boast this, big, want to be a big 6 type of squad, you don't want to fall out of that Champions League contention. So I think it's so crucial that Chelsea makes it, especially with a young team, especially with a first-year Premier League manager in Frank Lampard. And I think they're going to be able to do it. But it's going to be an interesting race, like I said. And like I said, if Sheffield or Wolves gets in the Champions League, it would be very interesting because those aren't squads that should be in this position to begin with. But that's what I'm sticking with. I'm going with 3 big 6 teams and let a lesser team who everybody thinks should get in already.
Yeah, that's a good point about Chelsea too, because you look at the Manchester United run of Champions League-less football, and you look at what Arsenal's going through now, that even when a club as big as they are slips out, it's so hard to get your stranglehold back onto that position, especially with how the Premier League is now. So losing that would be huge. So for my Champions League spots, I do have Liverpool in there, to be honest. After that, I think Leicester City have put themselves in a good enough position where they're not going to blow a certain amount of points. They're going to continue to play their game. They're still undervalued, but they're gonna find a way to get results. And they do have actually a tough go at it. They play Manchester United, Tottenham, Arsenal, Everton, Chelsea, and Bournemouth is tricky because of the relegation zone. I'll throw them in there, but I think that Leicester has a chance to get it. And I do think Manchester United will end up passing Chelsea, and it will be Manchester United and then Chelsea for that last spot. I was tempted to throw my hat in the Arsenal ring there, but I couldn't do it without laughing, so I decided to go against it. But when it comes down to it, I think Manchester United, one, they have a kinder schedule, which is true. Andrew outlined exactly who they're playing and when they're playing them. So that just shows that they have an easier work of it than Chelsea. I just think Manchester United's a better team right now, too, when you look at it. I think Chelsea leaks too many goals. I don't think it's going to cost them that much at this point in the season, but they need to fix that back line. I see that they are buying a lot of offensive players, and I agree, because when you look at the Manchester Cities and the Liverpool, you have depth on depth on depth, and that's what you need to be one of the best teams in the world. So they're doing it right, but they need to start investing in that back line, because Tomori's a nice player. I don't know if he's the answer, and if he's not, then you have one overrated center back in Rudiger who's good, but you have more that you have to fix. But I just think that they concede too many goals, and I think Manchester United will play a steady enough game to pass them. But I think it's a crapshoot between Chelsea and Manchester United. I don't see Leicester sliding. I was banking on Leicester sliding the year they won the Premier League, and ever since then they've shown me that they don't give up on anything, so I'm going to give them the credit there. So that's my top four. I think that Tottenham and Arsenal are both going to touch like the top five, because I think they're going to have some good wins. I also think that they're both going to have a lot of dumb losses, which is very characteristic of both of these clubs. So I think that Arsenal and Tottenham are going to be very close to each other for the rest of the campaign. And I think Wolves and Sheffield are in spots where they'll continue playing as they were, but if Tottenham or Arsenal get hot, they'll get past. I can't see one of them sustaining a run into the top four, but hey, you never know, especially with how this campaign's going.
Yeah, I think I agree with you at the latter half of that, Banks, especially because now that everybody's rested, everybody's kind of back to square one. We've seen it in Bundesliga to an extent. The more talented teams are more consistently winning, which is kind of why this shutdown, is worst case scenario for clubs like Wolves and Sheffield, because they were in such a good run of form. They were playing so well. But now all of the other teams that are objectively bigger than them and behind them, like Spurs and Arsenal, and the ones that they're chasing, like United and Chelsea, are fully rested, full squad health. And it almost seems inevitable that one, if not both of them, are going to be passed at some point by the teams that are behind them. I went Liverpool at the top, no surprise. I went Leicester second. Third, I agree with you, Banks. I went with United. I will not touch on it too much because you basically said everything that I was going to say. It just comes down to Chelsea it's been a tale of two seasons. I mean, they were so good in the first half of the season. I think they were second or third in the league. And since then, I mean, you look at their last 15 matches in the Premier League, it is a sea of yellow and red. It is poor form really since I would say the start of December up until when the league ended. It was just really, really poor. And if we're going to take any trends from Bundesliga, it's that form continues. So I'm interested to see if Chelsea is going to be able to bounce back. Trends would point to no. United, on the other hand, has been red hot. United do have an easier schedule, like both of you have pointed out. Chelsea are kind of still in the thick of things. They've got some big matches upcoming. And, I mean, I took Chelsea fourth in the Champions League spot. I'll just go ahead and reveal it. But I wouldn't count out Wolves either. Sheffield United maybe a little bit too young, maybe a little bit too new to really compete for a Champions League spot in this climate. But Chelsea still have to play Wolves. And that's a match that Wolves are certainly capable of winning. And so if Wolves take 3 points in that 6-point swing, we suddenly could be talking about Wolves as the team to get that last top five. I don't even know what to call it anymore with City out. That last qualification spot, if they're able to take 3 points against Chelsea. In the end, though, I think Chelsea do hold on to it for dear life and go to the Champions League next year. I'm glad you touched on Tottenham and Arsenal because that's something that I wanted to do also. Two clubs that you have to expect are going to at least try to go out and compete for European competition when things restart. Obviously, Tottenham, the case is that Jose Mourinho, which is first time as head with a fully healthy squad towards the end of the first half of the campaign. Spurs players were getting injured faster than the team could pick up points. And so that kind of left Jose Mourinho in a tough spot. We're getting our first opportunity of looking at him at this team with a full list of healthy players to choose from. And then obviously Arsenal, we've touched on it a little bit already. The form has been significantly better since Mikel Arteta took over. So two teams to watch closely for these last 9 or 10 these last 9 or 10 match weeks, because we really could have a very interesting Europa League and a Champions League race if one of these two teams catches fire. I'll go ahead and reveal it now. We all took Liverpool as the winner. I guess, believe it or not, Andrew just braced himself. This is a take that we're all agreeing on, but 25 points clear at the top. This was a topic that back in March, back when we started this, we didn't even know if we'd be able to crown Liverpool champion, because voiding the season as a whole was a really, really likely possibility. And the fact that we're even staring at this screen now is a testament to how far we've come since then. But in the end, I feel bad even wasting our viewers' time for talking about it, because there's no other team you can choose here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could seal up the title next weekend.
Yeah,
They could also collapse and make it the biggest collapse in Premier League history. Would that be the biggest collapse in like football history? I know, like with
that'll be the biggest collapse in sports history.
Yeah. I mean, 25 points clear at the top, 9 matches left.
They have 9, so they would have to lose every single
match.
Yeah. All they need is 6 points the rest of the way, and then clinch. And even if Arsenal beats City in the first match back for the Premier League restart, and all Liverpool has to do is beat Everton.
Let's do it.
At Goodison Park. How would that be? I know there's no fans, and obviously this whole thing is kind of weird because Liverpool hasn't won in 30 years. They want to celebrate with their fans. They want to hoist that trophy in front of 70,000 at Anfield, but it's not going to happen, obviously. But how insane would that be if Arsenal beat City on Wednesday, and then Liverpool at their biggest rival, with obviously no fans, but still their biggest rival, go in there and clinch their first title in 30 years? That would be insane.
Let's do it.
The biggest storyline for me here, obviously Liverpool's going to win it. They're not going to do this colossal collapse. It's going to be, can they break City's records for a couple of years? 100 points City had. Liverpool's on 82 right now. And I think the point gap was 19, and they're on 25 right now. So there's going to be 2 huge records that Liverpool could break.
And it's interesting, too, because Liverpool still has Man City. And honestly, Liverpool's schedule, they play a rivalry game against Everton, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Chelsea, among other teams that are fighting for their Premier League lives, and you have mid-table Burnley in there. If it wasn't Liverpool, you'd be like, dang, that's a tough hand for the rest of the campaign. But because it is Liverpool, you're like, all right, they're going to run the table, get some triple digits here.
Will you put any stock in lost to Atletico Madrid, lost to Watford, lost to Chelsea in the FA Cup, lost to Atletico Madrid again? For the last 6 matches before everything stopped across all competitions were losses. Is that any pause for concern? Obviously not any reason to be concerned for the title, but is that any reason to be concerned about them breaking the 100-point mark?
If I remember correctly, they tied Atletico Madrid and lost in extra time. So
yes,
that's a Champions League caveat, which is looked to, but no, I don't put any stock in any of that. If the form holds, then what? They'll stumble out of the gate and beat Everton and beat Crystal Palace and then be like, oh, we got 6 points, it's already over. I put no stock into that, but if it was a club not as talented as Liverpool, I absolutely would, as we've seen from the Bundesliga, but I just don't see how Liverpool would even come close to squandering this, even if they lost 10 games in a row going into Project Restart.
Yeah, you don't want to come out there, especially as this big bolstered, league champion already, even though you technically haven't been crowned yet. You don't want to go out there and just throw out duds the rest of the season, which I don't expect happening. But I mean, I don't know if we're going to see the exact same, dominant Liverpool that we saw for the first 29 matches of this season, and they don't really have to because, like we said, they can clinch it the first game back. So I think for Liverpool and City, like I said earlier, you're going to see a lot of squad rotation from Klopp and Guardiola, just to see what they have for next season, because we don't know what next season is going to bring, because we don't know when it's going to start, how many games are going to be played. So I think they want to see what they can get out of these players that don't really play a lot, and see if they have to go through this whole big transfer stuff for these 2 squads that are not shy of spending a lot of money in the window.
Yeah, agreed. I think with any other club, with Mönchengladbach or with someone like I don't know who's another team that was in poor form. Freiburg, I guess, if you want to look at that. Maybe you look at those clubs and say, all right, maybe there's a reason to be worried. We're talking about Liverpool. We're talking about what is up until about 3 weeks before this season ended. We're talking about the team that was the undisputed best team in Europe. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned. I believe, what's the record that City had? 104 points?
I think
it was 100 exact.
Yeah.
What is it?
I think it was 100 straight up.
100. So that's, they need 18 points from the last 9 matches. They need to average 2 points a match. I don't think they'll have any difficulty reaching that unless some colossal. You know what's funny is we're talking about if they don't take 18 points in 9 matches, that would be a colossal downfall, even though that's like 2 points a match is like undisputed top 4 good. That's like if they take 2 points a match, that's a 74-point season or a 76-point season. And we'd be talking about that as like a colossal downfall for Liverpool in the season. I don't think it happens. Look for Liverpool to break this record. And I believe, my math may be wrong, but even if City do beat Arsenal, that puts it a 22-point gap. Okay, no, never mind. Yeah, so Arsenal does have to beat City. So, Banks, it's the one time that I'll be rooting for Arsenal, just because I want to see Liverpool celebrate at Goodison Park. So, make sure the boys don't let us down. That match is Wednesday. Holy crap, Banks! What's up?
I said I'm glad you're rooting for Arsenal to pass Tottenham. That's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I dug myself into a hole, didn't I?
That was tough.
When is this North London derby? It's relatively soon, right? It's July 11th, so a little bit over, actually a month exactly. A month exactly from today is Tottenham Arsenal. I have to assume we're going to be doing something special on the show for that big derby match. As for more immediate matches, this Wednesday, everything gets started up again. This coming Wednesday, Aston Villa, Sheffield United at 1 p.m., City, Arsenal at 3:15, and then after that, I mean, is there a sight more beautiful than what this upcoming Premier League schedule is? It's quite literally every single day there's at least one Premier League match on. It is going to be thrilling. It's going to be painful for the clubs, but thank God we're on the couch and not in the dressing rooms. We get to watch every single day. Plus,
are they allowed to be in the dressing room?
What?
Are they even allowed to be in the dressing rooms?
That's a solid question. They're not for the scrimmages. I don't know about for the actual games.
Yeah.
We'll see. With this new MLS plan, we'll talk about that MLS plan on Monday too. If you're interested in hearing about that, the MLS is Back tournament will be taking place in Walt Disney World, and they've beautifully scheduled those matches to bookend the Premier League. So our weekends are going to be filled with us sitting on the couch and staring at the TV for no less than 10 hours a day. I believe that will do it for our show today for our Premier League preview. Again, Arsenal kickoff Wednesday against Man City at 3:15. Spurs kickoff Friday at 3:15 against Manchester United. And then Chelsea, where's the Chelsea match? Chelsea is Sunday, June 21st against Aston Villa at 11:15 in the morning. So 3 matches that we'll all keep our eyes on. Hopefully you will as well. Follow us on Twitter at London's Finest QU. If you're not following us already, we're active all 7 days of the week with highlights, articles, the whole 9 yards. So check us out there. It's been scrolling across the bottom of your screen all show. Also, check out our new blog, stoppagetimequ.weebly.com. That has also been going across the ticker across the bottom of your screen, and it's in our Twitter bio if you want to just go and click somewhere as opposed to typing it into your address bar. We do these shows every single weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right here on Periscope, right here on Twitter at 3 p.m. Usually what we'll do is we'll hop on a Zoom call, talk about the biggest headlines of the day. Today is a little bit different because we had a preview to do. We'll do our Serie A one probably early next week. So keep an eye out for that. And then tomorrow's show, we're going to do a nice weekend preview, which is what we usually do on Fridays, where we pick the biggest games, do our Call Your Shot game, which is fun if you're new to the show. So definitely check that out tomorrow at 3 p.m. Premier League is back, gentlemen. 6 days until kickoff. That is a phrase that I never thought I would speak ever again in my entire life, guys. How big is that? Next Wednesday is when everything gets back up again. We are excited to watch. We hope you are excited to watch. That will do it for our show today. For Jonathan Banks and Andrew Myers, my name is Will Fowler. Have a great Thursday, everybody.